Hey there, curious minds, and welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're plunging into a truly fascinating collection of documents. It takes us deep into the shadowy world of Cold War espionage. It's a journey into the Miernik Dossier.
Indeed. And this isn't your typical history book, right? It's more like a mosaic of raw intelligence. We're talking agents' reports, private letters, phone transcripts, even diary entries. Each piece gives a different view, often the conflicting one, all centered on this one man, Tadeusz Miernik.
Yeah, think of it like getting a peek behind the curtain of a real-life spy novel. But, with all the messy bits left in the conflicting stories, the human drama, the big questions about truth, and, deception. Our mission today is to really dig through these sources, not just figure out who Mirnik was or what his mission was about, but what does this whole saga tell us about the nature of intelligence itself?
Exactly. It's a classic Cold War story, but it really challenges what you think you know at almost every turn. We'll uncover layers of personal stuff, hidden agendas, unexpected twists. We'll guide you through the raw material to help you sort of connect the dots and reveal the often surprising human side in these high-stakes games where, let's be honest, trust is a luxury basically nobody can afford.
Okay, so let's unpack this enigma. Let's start with Munich himself and this perplexing situation that first puts him on the radar. Our story kicks off in Geneva, the World Research Organization that's a UN agency. Tadeusz Miernik, he's a Polish national working there, and suddenly his contract isn't renewed. He makes this desperate plea to the Director General, claims his government wants him back in Poland, but not for his professional skills.
No, he says it's to be tried on political charges and imprisoned. Sounds like a classic defection setup, right? Oh, absolutely. And for anyone in the intelligence world, that's a huge first signal, a major flag. Miernik explicitly says he fears his friendships with foreigners, Westerners, fears Warsaw's usual demented suspicion. And then crucially, he mentions a specific vulnerability, his sister, Zofia, a student in Warsaw, his only living relative, he claims. Now, for intel services, that screams potential hostage situation. Classic leverage.
Right, so he's painting himself as this cornered victim, but the WRO itself, it's important to understand that place, isn't it? Our sources describe it as basically a magnet for spies, great diplomatic cover, professional respectability. It's often the base for agents, not really the target itself.
Precisely. And that context means pretty much everyone Miernik bumps into could have a hidden agenda. Adding to the confusion, his direct boss, H-Con, Chief of Political Research, he initially backs Miernik up, big time. Describes his performance as of the highest quality, even recommends a permanent contract.
Which complicates things right away. Is Miernik genuinely valued? Or is Khan's support just part of the game?
And the Director General. He's annoyed by Khan getting involved, calls him naive, but delays the decision. Wisely, perhaps. But Nigel Collins, his first assistant, and we know he's British intelligence, he acts immediately.
Okay, so what's Collins' first move? What does that tell us?
Well, Collins' report mentions the Director General's hesitation. He's reluctant to ask the Polish ambassador to, quote, guarantee to me that Miernik will not be shot by his secret police.
Huh. Telling in itself.
Very. But the key action Collins takes is sending a query to Warsaw about this alleged sister, Zofia. And the reply comes back sharp and clear. No female named Miernik appears on the rolls of Warsaw University, or any other Polish university for that matter.
Whoa, okay. So Miernik's initial plea, the whole foundation, this only living relative, it's just flat out wrong. A lie. That's not a small mistake. That's a huge piece of deception right at the start. And for you, listening, this is maybe the first big lesson from this dossier. In spying, the first story you hear, the one meant to get sympathy, it's almost never the whole story. Every plea, every weakness, it's immediately checked out for operational value or for its deceptive potential. And once that first crack appears, the web just gets deeper, doesn't it? Paul Christopher enters the scene. He's an American agent. Deep cover, meaning he's built this credible civilian life, no obvious ties to intel. He becomes a key observer. Miernik starts confiding in Christopher, sounding shaken over the phone, even more shaken than he usually does. Repeats the fears of arrest, questioning prison by Warsaw or perhaps someone farther east. He even says to Christopher, you cannot possibly hear in those words the echoes that a Pole hears. Dramatic stuff.
And what's fascinating is how the intel community immediately tries to read this behavior. U.S. intelligence documents describe Miernik's constant emotional state as a stagey show of despair.
A performance.
They're seeing it as a performance, yeah. Calculate, like his outburst at lunch with Prince Kalash el-Qatar, calls him a disgusting savage over some cultural misunderstanding. Or later, at a drunken party, debating German versus Russian armies, then dramatically breaking his glasses, saying he's going to dance, pulling a loaded Bentley onto the floor. All of this is meticulously noted down. The big question for the watchers then, and for us now, is this real trauma, genuine cultural pain, or is it a very, very convincing act to get sympathy and throw people off?
That really is the million-dollar question. And while he's putting on these emotional displays, the dossier hits us with this just jarring detail, something that completely shatters that image of him as a clumsy academic. It's something that, for you listening, will force a total rethink of this guy. During target practice in Sudan's Sten guns, Pistol's Miernik, who seems reluctant at first, puts on a remarkable display of shooting. We're talking every round in the bullseye with the Sten, every round in the bullseye with the pistol, and then he just stares at Collins contemptuously. What on earth is going on?
This is huge, a really significant piece of the puzzle. It's where the Miernik enigma starts to get really solid. Zofia later actually explains this contradiction. She says he learned to shoot as a kid because asthma kept him out of other sports, became a kind of genius with firearms. She frames it almost like an intellectual challenge for him. Trigonometry with noise, she calls it, not aggression. But this detail, it just completely unravels the persona he's built. It hints at this hidden capacity for something much more dangerous. It suggests the innocent academic might just be one layer, maybe covering a much more complex and potentially lethal individual. Makes you question everything he's presented about himself.
Absolutely. And just when we think we're starting to peel back Miernik's layers, another key player steps in. Sasha Kurnov, a Soviet official. Surveillance picks up a secret meeting between Kurnov and Miernik. Typing is heard. Then Kurnov promises to see to Miernik's Zofia, the same Zofia who supposedly didn't exist at Warsaw University. What does that tell us about their connection?
Well, this meeting is a critical turning point. It leads directly to Miernik asking Christopher to take on this incredibly risky mission, arguably a crazy mission, crossed into Czechoslovakia to rescue Zofia. The plan itself is pure spy fiction, a specific paperback, Schiller's poetry, as a signal, a certain coffee house, a time to pick up. Christopher's totally incredulous. He notes, Czechoslovakia is Khrushchev's country estate, basically Soviet territory. But he goes through with it. And the rescue itself, full of twists. Kurnov shows up, reveals he bribed a border guard, tells Christopher to rake over Zofia's footprints to hide their trail.
Okay, that sounds less like a desperate rescue and more like a managed extraction. Carefully stage managed. So what is the real story with Zofia and Kurnov and Miernik?
Right, and this is where you see the long game and intelligence really come into sharp focus. Zofia herself later tells Christopher the whole pretty astonishing story. Kurnov isn't just some Soviet contact. He's her godfather.
Godfather.
Yeah. During World War II, her parents, the Mierniks, hid Kurnov, who was Jewish, in their attic for 4 years. So Zofia isn't Tadeus's biological sister. She's essentially his adopted sister and Kurnov's goddaughter.
Wow, that changes everything.
Completely. The rescue was this meticulously planned operation, not just to get Zofia out of Czechoslovakia, but to integrate her into whatever larger scheme was unfolding. And here's another kicker. Zofia reveals that she and Kurnov used book codes for secret messages when they were kids. A skill Tadeusz also learned. It provides this vital context, shows how deep these personal histories run, how even childhood games can become tools in espionage decades later.
That revelation is just a masterclass in long-term intelligence planning, isn't it? Weaving personal histories, childhood ties into this complex, deep-cover thing spanning years, blurring family, loyalty, politics, makes you wonder just how many layers of truth Miernik himself was juggling. And now Zofia is rescued, or maybe integrated is the better word, into this complex game. The focus shifts. The stage is set for the next act, even more dangerous, in a really unlikely place. Sudan. So Prince Kalash El-Khatar, flamboyant, Oxford-educated Sudanese royal, he's planning a trip to Sudan, delivering a Cadillac to his father. He invites Miernik along, and Miernik conveniently has this scholarly interest in Sudanese history and culture. He's even supposedly writing a book on this subject. Christopher, our American agent, is of course directed to tag along for surveillance.
Yeah, but this trip is way more than just some academic jaunt or a fancy car delivery. By now, U.S. intelligence thinks Miernik is actually attempting to defect to a Western country for operational reasons dictated by the Polish intelligence service, maybe with Soviet help. They've tentatively ID'd Miernik as Richard, a principal agent for a joint Polish-Soviet OPI, advising a local communist movement in Sudan, the United Liberation Front, or ALF.
So what Miernik calls scholarly interest is seen by intel agencies as deep cover for a mission. The layers just keep getting deeper.
They really do. And joining this Sudanese journey is Alona Bentley. Remember her? The concentration camp survivor. Complex background, wealthy heiress, reputation for sexual looseness, communist sympathies. And she had a brief fling with Miernik earlier, described as a natural mimic and an inventive cook.
Okay, so what's her role in all this? Just along for the ride.
Not quite. Sources confirm Ilona is actually a Soviet agent, her assignment, to monitor the performance of Miernik.
Monitor him. So he's being watched by his own side.
Potentially. Her backstory adds another layer, too. Recruited after her Hungarian fiancé was jailed for subversion back in '56. Gives her a personal angle on her politics, maybe. And then there's a critical discovery later. In her camera case, an East German Exacta camera, but hidden inside the lens. A short-range radio homing device, still wrapped in plastic like it hadn't been used yet.
A homing device?
Yeah.
That's incredibly ominous. The implication is chilling. Miernik might not just be running an operation, he might be being watched, maybe even targeted by his own handlers.
Exactly. It raises the stakes dramatically. Miernik, the supposed defector, could actually be set up by the very people he's supposedly working for.
And things get even more dangerous. The Sudanese Special Branch, led by Chief Inspector Ali Qasim, they recruit Prince Kalash. They want him to act as an agent provocateur against the ALF. Kalash isn't keen, but his father, the emir, pressures him. He's ordered to lure these communist cutthroats into a trap, which puts Christopher and everyone else with Kalash in this incredibly dangerous, morally gray zone.
And this is where Christopher, the American agent, really finds himself torn, deeply conflicted. The evidence is piling up that Miernik is an agent, right? But Christopher has this instinctive feeling, his gut feeling, that all the signs pointing to Miernik being an enemy agent are just possibly false.
His gut versus the fact?
Precisely. He describes the struggle between his intestinal feeling and the objective evidence, a struggle to hold on to the idea of Miernik's innocence. His training screams, see all behavior as cover. But his intuition is yelling something else entirely. It's that core psychological dilemma in intelligence work, isn't it? When do you trust your gut over the dossier?
It's a heavy question, yeah. How do you reconcile those objective puzzle pieces with that feeling that something's just wrong?
This internal battle, it really comes to a head out there in the desert. The climax is hard, brutally hard, in the Sudanese desert. The group, Christopher, Zofia, in a Land Rover, they're ambushed. ALF bandits. There's a shootout. Christopher gets a bloody nose. Afterwards, they find 4 attackers dead, and among the dead, Kalash finds a photograph of himself. This wasn't random, was it?
No, not at all. This attack is directly tied into the bigger operation. It's this tragic mess of crossed wires and competing orders. We learned that Firecracker, real name Kamal, he's a U.S. asset inside the ALF, he was told to kill Richard because U.S. intelligence believed Richard was Miernik, the Soviet principal agent.
So the U.S. ordered the hit.
Based on their intelligence, yes. But the attack went off prematurely, and the bandits apparently had conflicting orders anyway. Capture Kalash, kill the Europeans, but leave one alive. Though which one to leave alive, that wasn't clear. Just chaos. A deadly dance of miscommunication. And the immediate result, it's horrific. Days later, Miernik's body is found. He's found crucified. And crucially, Ilona's Exacta camera, the one with the homing device, is found beside him.
That strongly links her device to his location, to his death. Suggests he was either lured there, tracked, maybe even marked for death by his own side, using that device.
His death, so violent, so public, it just becomes the ultimate question mark, doesn't it?
Exactly. Was he betrayed by his Soviet or Polish handlers? Killed by the Americans based on bad intel? The ambiguity of his life just tragically carries right through to his end. And Christopher, the American agent, he gives this powerful statement to his bosses afterwards. It's quoted verbatim in the dossier. He's just profoundly disillusioned. He flat out says he believes Miernik was innocent and that the intelligence community's actions, driven by a desire to win, to humiliate the bastards, he says starkly, I think we ran Miernik as we did primarily for the fun of it.
Wow. We ran Miernik for the fun of it. That's a hell of an indictment. It speaks volumes about the dangers of the game. When he says ran Miernik, that's intel speak, right? Managed him, controlled him as part of their operation. His statement basically suggests it became less about truth, more about the thrill, the operational results.
Yeah, he argues his gut feeling about Miernik's innocence got overridden by training that teaches you to see all behavior as cover. He concludes that shifting to seeing Miernik as the enemy was a flight from objectivity. It led to trying to achieve operational results instead of finding the truth. And his description of Miernik, that carcass on the cross, clumsy and ridiculous even in death, it's just heartbreaking.
Yeah.
And morally shattering.
It really is a profound moment of crisis for Christopher.
Absolutely. But despite his passionate appeal, despite his personal breakdown, headquarters, they don't budge. They stick to the line. Miernik was a Soviet agent, and they point to evidence they see as compelling. His diary showing a man torn, yes, but also showing a fear of discovery, suspicion of everyone, a determination to do his duty. They also cite his detailed file cards on Sudan, the demotion of a Polish intel colonel linked to the Sudan Soviet radio, trying to contact Richard.
So it's Christopher's gut-wrenching conviction of innocence versus what headquarters sees as cold, hard evidence. The official line stays. Miernik was an exceptionally clever agent.
Right, and the Soviets. Predictably, they later blamed the U.S. for killing Miernik, chalking it up to the stupidity of natives. Typical deflection, the sheer complexity,
Yeah.
multiple agencies, double agents like Firecracker. It created this fog where the truth was just lost, elusive even to the people right in the middle of it, leaving us and them with this unresolvable ambiguity.
That ambiguity, it feels like the real core of this whole story.
Yeah, it really does. And the human fallout is immense. Those relationships, forged under intense pressure, they just crumble afterwards. Zofia, carrying Miernik's ashes. She struggles with his memory, calls him a saint who was born too late, someone who just couldn't keep the world out. She gets involved with Christopher for a bit, but it ends. She says she saw the truth in his eyes, that he did not like to make love to her. A really poignant symbol of how the mission's trauma just poisoned everything.
Just tragic, a tragic end for so many caught up in it. Nigel Collins, the British agent, he just carries on, presumably, unaffected by the moral mess. But Ilona Bentley, a Soviet agent with the camera, she later blames the Soviets for Miernik's death. There's a record of a hysterical encounter with her case officer. It's a stark reminder, isn't it? The lasting personal damage these operations inflict, even on the players who seem to be in control.
It really underscores how perception and objective truth can just completely diverge, especially in that murky world of intelligence. Was Miernik this committed agent, a master manipulator, or just a tragic figure crushed by a system that saw everyone as a piece on the board? A system that, maybe as Christopher hinted, kind of enjoyed the game too much. The dossier gives you strong arguments for both sides, leaves you wrestling with it.
What a journey we've been on. From a UN office in Geneva to a desert crucifixion in Sudan, we've seen how deeply personal lives and huge geopolitical games can get tangled up. Miernik's story just leaves you questioning everything. What we choose to believe, why we believe it, the very nature of trust and betrayal.
It really does make you wonder, doesn't it? What if sometimes, in chasing answers, chasing those operational results, we actually end up creating the very reality we think we're uncovering, and maybe lose sight of the human truth somewhere along the way?
That's a powerful thought to sit with long after this deep dive is over. Thank you so much for joining us on this absolutely fascinating and troubling journey into the Miernik dossier. We really hope it gave you plenty to think about. Until next time, stay curious.